Hi, everybody. I'm Ivy Rivera. I'm a psychic medium and a Taino Arawak. I started giving readings for the public when I was 15 years old, and I started the Ivy League Psychic Academy, a school where I train people in psychic mediumship and other energetic developments about 8 years ago. Between my clients who were coming to me asking psychic, mediumship, paranormal, empathic questions, and the courses that I was teaching at the school, I felt that there were always many other questions that were falling in the cracks, questions that I couldn't get to. So I had started another show called Ask a Medium quite a few years ago, and I take psychic and mediumship questions there. But even then, I was finding that there were other questions about our personal development, about the universe, curious things that never really fit into either category. So I started this advice and discussion show, Ask Ivy, very recently, to have a platform to talk about those questions. So go ahead, post your questions. We're going to get to as many as we can. Quick announcement, we do have 2 classes coming up here really soon. So tomorrow is Dreams class. Everybody gets one dream analyzed. I cover everything from lucid dreaming to astral travel to prophetic dreaming. What is sleep apnea? Why did these things happen? Very interesting class, very foundational in understanding what is going on with you. Also, and everybody dreams, so this is for everyone. Okay, so we do have orograph reading next week. You'll learn colors, symbology, a bit of medical intuitive, and then we have hauntings, clearings, and attachments later on in February, training you in how to understand when negative energy is accumulating and you need to clear it out, how to do so, and how to be safe in preventing it from happening again. So I do encourage you guys to join us in person, online, or everything at the Academy is available through video download. Okay, many more classes up on the website.
This is about contracts in a relationship. She's wondering, what if only one person is willing to participate in the contract? Since I walked away from my boyfriend, do I have to redo it again?
That's a great question. So when we have a contract with someone else, what this means is that we have, more often than not, something called cords. Now, the cords are that pesky problem that never goes away, that causes things like a feeling of obsession or being addicted to the other person, or almost like you're a prisoner somehow, like they're pulling at your energy all the time. You're pulling at their energy all the time. They're always in your head. They may pop up even around you. It may seem like the universe is somehow putting them or topics of them on your path. So it can be a little bit obsessive. Now, what happens is that the cords are really acting up when you break up. You may not have noticed this as a significant issue when you guys were together. And then there you go. You find that you're even having physical reactions to leaving them. A drop in body temperature, flu-like symptoms, colds, headaches, upset stomach, things like this. We have a class called Relationships, Boundaries, and Cord Cutting that teaches you how to not only cut those cords, but how to do it appropriately, involving forgiveness and, more in accordance to your question, a signing off on that old original contract that no longer is supposed to be there in the way that it was written. What we want and what we do in that class is we sign on to a new contract at the end to ensure that you're not still being negatively affected by the things that weren't done. It isn't your fault that you ended up with a soulmate or someone that you had a karmic contract with, someone that you had past life connection with, that you had work to do and they weren't willing to do it. It's not your problem. When it becomes your problem is really when you stay. When you allow for that stagnancy to take a hold on your life, it takes a significant toll, and it increases your negative karma due to drop in your energy and law of attraction. You did the right thing by leaving that person behind, hard as it is. And what you want to understand through another class is also good for this. It's called Karma, Contracts, and Past Lives. That will also break down the different kinds of contracts that we have with people and how to understand when it's your responsibility and you're not done yet, you still have to do some work and you're free to go, and how to properly do that and completely do that. That's a great question. I love that. People have questions like that about, love and with their bosses and with their parents and siblings. It's everywhere.
How do you know if you're within your life contract? I often wonder, am I within mine? Are the choices I'm making and things that are happening in my life fulfilling what I'm destined to do?
Okay. How do you know when you're working within your life contract? I always say this. The majority of the people that I see are not within their life contract. They are really living either one foot in or completely off base. So one of the things that you might want to do is actually get a life contract reading. But the other way to approach this is to sit with your work guide. Ask your work guide to show you what is within your contract. Now, the magical thing about this is, you sit there for a minute and you just listen. It's not a deep state of meditation. Just sit and listen to what they show you. The way your guide is going to work, they're going to put images in your head. You're going to get feelings and thoughts and visions. If it resonates with you in such a way that the suggestions are something you've thought about probably a million times, probably things that you've thought about for many, many years, and possibly even since you were a child, this is a way that you know that something is part of your life contract. Another way to know is that you feel passionate about it, almost to a point of obsession, and it isn't an option not to do it. If you don't do it, or you procrastinate, you put it off, it haunts you. It's almost like everything else you're doing feels like a waste of time, and that's accurate. It's because it is. If we do not abide within our life contract, and we're not doing the things that we're supposed to do, meaning lessons we're supposed to learn, work that we're supposed to complete, and relationships that we're supposed to be fulfilling, if we're not doing those things, then we have a sense of emptiness. There's a sense of restlessness. There's a sense of running out of time or anxiety. Even if you had a ton of money, you may feel empty, depressed, low-level energy. And typically people suffering with this have a general sense of having to hustle for everything. Nothing comes easy. You're out of the flow. You're not in the way of the universe. When you are working within your life contract, it's not just about the money. The money may actually take some time to get there. But you should feel a sense of peace, an inner sense of joy and happiness, and you should feel rooted and grounded in yourself in a different way than what you normally do, like a sense of knowing that you're doing the right thing. And it should feel exciting. I want to say, too, people sleep better. People who are living within their life contract, they sleep. The work that they did was good, solid work. It meant something. Also, the universe will work with you. Little bits of prosperity. The right people show up on your path. Red lights turn green. You have almost like a lottery aspect. People will be like, what, you have a horseshoe up your rear end? It is like you have a horseshoe up your rear end. You are living within the path. Okay, so everybody really needs to get on board with what's going on in their life contract and also understand everything in there is on a deadline. So if you're over deadline, you're going to be squeezed. Okay, feel uncomfortable.
I'm noticing my son bringing up names of deceased family members that he could never know. I've seen him playing alone, but chuckling and laughing like someone else is there with him. Could it be my deceased family? How do kids know or sense these things? Why would they keep coming to him? It's happened on more than one occasion, but my daughter doesn't seem to engage.
Your daughter might be older, or your daughter would be behind this one in age. So this happens for a couple key reasons. When a child turns 3 years old, they start to tap into certain brain waves that allow, this happens to everyone. it allows for us to hear the spirits literally with our ears and to see them literally with our eyes. So at 3 years old, we're extremely efficient with mediumship. Everyone is. It is natural and it doesn't skip a single soul on earth. So what starts to happen with a baby, right, around 3 is they start to talk to things like from their crib or, their little bed. They start to talk, and you might notice orbs or lights or things like this. And if they are speaking clear enough, they'll even get the exact name of the family member or nicknames. They will also know that when they see photographs in the house or objects that came from that deceased loved one, they can tell you who it belongs to, because that's the person they've been playing with. Now, the question is, why are they there? They're there to watch over you. They're there to support you. What a lot of people don't understand when they come in to see me for a reading, they'll say, well, I don't want to hear from so-and-so because he died before I was even born. He's still your ancestor and is supporting you. So we have loved ones who passed way long ago that you haven't seen in a long time. We have some that passed before you were ever here. And they all continue to work on your behalf, let's say. And the children know them. So the children probably knew them before they came to Earth, which is interesting. So for us to have a misconception that they don't know them, that's very, very off base. Now, here's the other thing that happens. When we turn 5 and 6 years old, the right side of our brain starts to develop. Now, this is very different than the brain waves we were tapping into. So at 5 and 6, we see a child start to see the spirits in their mind's eye, and they start to hear them in their head, as though it is their own voice. That's called clairaudient ability. So it shifts and it changes, but it doesn't go away. Okay, so then what happens is children go to school and they're told, don't talk about that. You don't have imaginary friends. This is bad. This shows that you're unstable, or, we don't talk about things like ghosts, or ghosts aren't real. And we start to confuse them. And they very much understood. We all did at one time how the universe works. And then we get further and further and further away. So what you want to do is celebrate the fact that he's there with family members that he's probably known for a long, long time. Celebrate the fact that they're watching over you. And encourage the difference between those types of interactions with spirits that are positive versus other spirits that are lower and don't need to be there. So he needs to learn discernment and how to control it, so he can always say, nope, don't want to talk to you, but yes, I will talk to you.
It seems as though spirits use the energy from my phone or Bluetooth a lot. I don't know why, because I can hear them when they talk to me. If they are trying to get my attention, what is it for if they just won't tell me?
Okay. My little witch cat. So they're absolutely using your phone. They're using anything. So they're going to use computers, batteries, telephones, your microwave. I mean, really anything that they can get at. The reason they're doing this is because it takes a lot of energy for them to communicate. So what I was always told growing up about the way mediumship worked was that they are using all of this energy, and we need to tap into that same frequency. So we're sort of increasing ours as well to help out. They also do something called piggybacking, or they'll pool together and they'll use each other's energy to get a message across and things like this. So there are a ton of things that they do. You're assuming that they have something to say, and this is probably where it gets a little bit more confusing. They don't always have a ton to say. And even if they do, they may not have a ton to say to you. Part of the reason that you would notice that this is going on is, A, you're being more mindful, but also you probably have a heightened mediumistic ability compared to the average person, or you have a heightened call on your life, in your life contract, to do light work. Therefore, you vibrate higher. So what you may not be noticing is that they're actually draining you. They're not just taking from your phone. They may actually be tapping into your energy or trying to get messages across to you. If you do not know the language, they are not necessarily going to stop trying, but you would not understand what they're trying to say. So what I would recommend to anybody who has this going on repeatedly are 2 different classes: empathic awareness up on my website, and psychic mediumship development is huge. That trains you in the language and all the ways that they naturally try to come and communicate with you. If you can hear them, you would hear them in your head as though it is your own thought. And with clairaudient ability, we're really talking about the ringing in the ears. People think they have tinnitus or a pressure in the ears. Some people, though, get anxiety attacks. That's super common. Or random bouts of perfusive sweating out of nowhere. All of these things are indicators that they're trying to communicate with you.
The other night I was cooking and I began to speak in another language.
Okay.
I stepped back to start writing and meditate. It was very confusing. Any insight is appreciated.
Okay. Well, speaking in tongues is pretty common when we're talking about channeling. So the way that I train my students is in something called mental mediumship. That means that we're not, until master's class, we're not really going that deep in regards to trance mediumship and physical mediumship. Mental mediumship, if you understand the language and you've trained properly, you should know how to turn it on and off and where to set your boundaries. If you don't know that, get in for class with us. But I think the next one starts in March. But what can happen if you're not using straight up mental mediumship and you're not in control of it all the time is something called trance mediumship. Trance mediumship is going to happen for the average person who's very mediumistic if they go out and drink, if they use any kind of drugs, if they get into a very deep state of meditation, it could happen. It can just happen on accident. For my psychic mediumship students who've, graduated and they've been out there working a while, we have something called master class because this can start to happen more frequently when you're working. But trance is allowing for the spirit to actually come into you and speak through you in their language, and you would get all of their mannerisms and things like this. Now, another reason that this might happen is because you are actually going through a process where you're tapping into one of your past lives. So if you're an old soul, you have many past lives behind you. They're not always coming to the surface. You don't always have all of your past lives trying to be completed, get resolved. Sometimes you meet somebody or you enter into a new phase of your life. You have a new situation and it triggers you back into unfinished business from a previous life. Or who you were then is something you need to start tapping into now. Maybe you were a strong leader back then and you're going to need that now. Could be a million things. What happens is typically you'll start to have dreams and they feel very real, but you don't realize it's you in those dreams. Obviously, you look different. You can have flashbacks when you're driving and things like this. I assure you it's perfectly safe. You could also notice that when you're sleeping, you're speaking in tongues or singing in another language or taking your notes in a different handwriting or other language. And for you, it came out in the kitchen the other day. But it's useful. We don't want to just blow it off and be like, that was nuts, or like, that was weird, I hope that doesn't happen again, or maybe you hope it does, but why? Okay, it's useful information. What do you need to know about that?
I'm taking mediumship classes and finding it hard to balance time. Are there any books or classes that you would recommend?
A lot of mediumship classes are based internationally and still today, sadly, on meditation. They're very dragged out. They don't really give you the secrets on how this works, and they can be a real waste of time in general because there are so many gaps in the language that they teach, but also myths. They're based on myths that are 100% inaccurate. And so I would always recommend my own training. There isn't another training like it in the world. And it's quick. The very first class, you're giving a reading. It should not take that long. So that's it. I wouldn't recommend anything outside of the PSC method that we train in. It's the psychology of spirit communication method. There's no meditation involved. It is all about brain waves, brain patterns, and working with energy. It's more scientific than anything else. It's about tapping into that information quickly and accurately. So I wouldn't waste a million years somewhere else. No, and there aren't books, but I'm working on one. Why is my money and health off base? Okay. A lot of people have been asking this. They have noticed that there's sort of a nitpicking way with their health, and nothing seems to be going their way. They're working harder, they're getting less, a little cold, and then the flu, and then this, and then that is accumulating. Why is this happening? It is entirely possible that you have reached a deadline within your life contract. I was talking about this earlier with someone else's question. If within your life contract there was something important for you to do, and you have decided, even though you knew you were supposed to, and the universe has told you, you've gotten plenty of signs and symbols that you should, if you have continuously rejected the opportunity to move forward, you're going to notice that you're going through a phase that I call the breaking of the legs. The breaking of the legs is the third part of a three-part process that involves you being confronted by the universe, confronted by your higher mind. And when this starts to happen, it's not bad karma per se, but it could feel as though, God has taken his hand off of you, or your guides and your ancestors are no longer there helping you. It could feel like you're out there on your own a little bit more than what you used to be. It can be repeat illnesses, a sense of depression, and general bad luck. It's a decline in your prosperity. The breaking of the legs is the final time that you're going to be told that you need to move forward and do something, and it has everything to do with the deadline that you have passed in your life contract. My suggestion is to always, when you're told to do something and you know it's time for a change, to do it right then. Don't allow things to get to that point, okay? If you've been so hurt in love and by people you have tried to trust, how on earth do you continue to keep trying, open up to people, and trust people? This is fantastic. So my answer to that is that we all have free will, and you can't necessarily judge and say that because someone has done you dirty, because someone has abandoned you, because someone hurt you, whether they care after or they don't care. In order for you to move on and heal, you need to understand that that person had free will and they chose wrong. You have free will and you will choose right. There's always karma coming back for what we do. Okay, so those people may be suffering. And usually people who do this are already obviously suffering. So try to see them as someone who is not wise enough to properly own their energy and expel their energy, and that they are going to have to take responsibility for that. Detach yourself from them and look at your ability to love, to want to heal, to want to get out there again as a huge trophy for yourself. What does that say about you? Okay, your level of strength, and be proud of that. But I think it's also really important not to look at people as people in the way that we traditionally do. I try to think of everyone as being a wide open channel, a vessel that is being used all the time by negative energies in the universe, low level, and by positive, high level energies in the universe. If we are not mindful and in ownership of our energy at all times, we could be manipulated one way or another all the time. So try not to take the things that people do to you so personally. Put it more on their plate. That's their failure. That's their problem. That's a ton of healing that they need. and they are not being mindful and in control of their energy. Therefore, they are being allowed, they are allowing for themselves to be used by negative energies in the universe. And you will not make that choice. So it's also a learning opportunity. Every time someone hurts me, I ask, what can I learn from this? What can I learn about that person's failure? How can I apply it so that I can continue to achieve and help people more? And I look at them no different than anyone else who's doing the right thing or the wrong thing. Everyone's just a channel. That person is out of control. They're not owning their energy.
We're all here to learn lessons, but how do we know what lessons we are here to learn?
Well, the nice thing about lessons is that they don't come at you all at once. They may all be within your contract, your life contract, which you signed before you came to Earth, but they're not going to pellet you all at once, thank God. So what we're doing, some are slower than others, okay, the tortoise and the hare. What we're doing is trying to stay as clean as we possibly can. We're trying to keep our energy vibrating as high as we can. So we want to be mindful that we're not being negatively influenced by other people. Whether it be drugs or it be toxic people who don't have control over their energy ever, or staying in a stagnant, stressful work environment. We want to clear all that up as often as we can and daily. That allows for us to see the lessons more clearly. And you want to ask yourself constantly, every single time something happens. The other day, I couldn't find my date book. I hadn't lost my date book in years. Couldn't find it anywhere, and I was late for a business meeting. And then my car, I got out of the car to go look for it, and the car actually locked me out with the keys in the ignition, running. And I said, you know what? I had to call AAA, the whole thing. And I said, straight away, my first thing was, what is the lesson? What am I supposed to be learning right now? What is this trying to teach me? And it was interesting what I saw. First of all, I was moving too quick. Second of all, I was supposed to have a conversation with someone who was there with me that had been put off for a while. And it was an opportunity for some direction to be given to me about other things that I needed to do that were superior to that meeting. So I quickly ask all the time, what am I supposed to learn? And then I stop and I really sit back like an observer, not an absorber, like an observer. And I allow for the situation to show me, this is what it is. Once you learn a lesson, you will move on to another lesson. But if you keep hitting the same problem over again, you keep hitting the same people that are problematic over again, you keep having the same discussion about your life, or a repeat illness sometimes, or that same low-level energy job. If it keeps happening again and again and again, it is the law of attraction at work. You will repeat until you have learned. The second you do, it's nothing more than a mental shift, and it's gone. And you're on to the next. Number patterns will also show you what your lesson is supposed to be. So pay attention to numbers that follow you. Okay, guys, thanks so much for tuning in. The next Ask Ivy is going to be
February 12th.
Okay, and then we have Ask Medium, where I take your psychic mediumship questions on Wednesday, February 5th. Okay, we'll see you guys soon. Thanks so much.